Hello, and welcome to the live lesson recording on reflections and rotations. So, in this lesson, you will learn to describe how the coordinates of a two-dimensional figure change after a single reflection and determine the coordinates of a two-dimensional figure after a single reflection. So, what do you notice about these coordinates? Well, when we look at it, not only is the image flipped, but you can see how in this one on the left, we have this green coordinate that's -1, 2. And on the right, we have 1, 2. So our x value is getting either negative or positive. So it's kind of like we are multiplying it by a negative, right? So pay really close attention throughout this lesson and throughout this assignment on what your coordinates are and how they're changing. So we do have a few rules for reflections. Now, a reflection is when you flip a figure. So a reflection is flipping. We could flip it over the X, we could flip it over the Y. And whenever we do that, there are some rules. These rules are really important. Definitely make sure that you have them written down in your notes somewhere because you want to make sure that you get these memorized, okay? So over the X axis, all you're going to do is you're going to take your first set and you're going to make the Y be negative. Okay, now over the Y, you're going to take your first set and make the X be negative. So you're just kind of doing the opposite. So when you flip over the X, your Y becomes negative. When you flip over the Y, your X becomes negative. Now, I know you're probably thinking, well, what if it's already negative? If it's already negative, then you just make it positive. So it's basically like you're multiplying it by a negative. Okay, so those are those rules. Make sure you have those written down somewhere. Make sure that you get those memorized. Now remember, these are for reflections. Reflections is when you flip an object. All right, so let's do a little practice here. So we're going to practice flipping this over the X and over the Y. So I'm going to start with the X one, okay? So when we flip it over the X, this means that we are taking the original coordinate and we are making the Y value negative. So if we first start with our one of 2, 2, okay, we're going to make our Y value negative. So we're going to have 2, -2. Okay, so I'm going to plot a point at 2, -2. So that's going to be a point right here. Okay, now let's look at our next one. So we have 6, -2. Okay, so 6, -2, we want to make our, or sorry, 6, +2, I apologize. So 6, +2. And now we just want to make our Y value negative. So we're going to have 6, -2. So we're going to have 6 and we're going to go down to -2 and we're just going to plot a point. Okay, now this is really important to look at. Our third point is 4, 0. Well, you can't really make 0 negative, can you? No. So it's actually just going to stay the same of 4, 0. So when we flipped it over the X, this is what it looks like. It kind of looks like a mirror, right? So a reflection is kind of like a mirror image. You are flipping the figure. So this is what an X is. Now this is a good place to take a picture. So we have flipped this over the X axis. Okay, I'm going to clear these and we're going to go and flip it over the Y now. So this was over the X, now let's flip it over the Y. When we flip over the Y, we make our X value negative. So let's take our points. Well, first we have our 2, 2. We need to make our X value negative. So that's going to be -2, 2. Okay, so we're going to go find -2, 2. So now we have our first one, okay? Then we're going to take our 6, 2, and we're going to make our X value negative. So -6, 2. Okay, so let's go find -6. We're going to go put a point at 2. Okay, now we're going to take our last one, which is 4, 0. So we're taking 4, 0, and we are making our x value negative, so that's negative 4, 0. So we're going to go find negative 4 and plot at 0. And now we have our new shape, okay? Now the key thing to remember here for this one is at this point over here, I'm going to call this A, okay? It ended up over here. So it's not like you're moving the figure, you are flipping it. So this A switched to being on the right to being on the left. Okay, so remember that a reflection is always going to flip. Again, a really good place to pause the video and take a picture. All right, so I'm going to clear these and move on. All right, so let's practice this reflection one more time, okay? If you want to, go ahead and pause your video, try this on your own, come back and restart the video when you're ready to review with me, okay? All right, so first we're going to start with our x. So we're going to take our values and we're going to make the y negative, okay? So let's first start with our 2, 1. Well, to make that one negative, we're going to have 2, negative 1. Perfect. So we're going to go find 2 and we're going to plot at negative 1. So 2, negative 1. Then our next one, we have 4, 1. We're making our y value, so we're going to have 4, negative 1. Okay, so 4, negative 1. All right, and then we have 3, negative 1. Well, to make 3, negative 1 be negative, you're just going to make it positive. So we're going to end up with 3, 1. So we have 3, and we're going to make it 1. Okay, so that's all you're going to do with those pairs there. Okay, so remember, when you're flipping over the x, you're just making your y value become negative. All right, so now let's go ahead and flip over the y. So to flip over the y, remember we are taking our values and we're making our x value become negative. So if we start with our 2, 1, we make our x negative, that's negative 2, 1. So we're going to find negative 2 and plot right here at 1. And actually, it looks like I was reading this graph wrong. If we look here, 2 isn't until up here, so that's actually going to make it be right here. So we can see our increments are a little bit different. So this is going to be negative 2, 1. Now we're going to take our next one. So we have 4, 1. We're going to make our x value negative, so negative 4, 1. Okay, so now we're going to plot one at negative 4, 1. Now, same thing. We're going to take this one. We're going to make our x value negative. So negative 3, negative 1. So we're going to go find negative 3, and we're going to plot one at negative 1, just like that. And now we have flipped over the y. Again, remember something really important to pay attention to is where your points moved. So again, if we were to say that this was A, it is now over here. Okay, so it has flipped. It didn't just move, it flipped. The key thing here is to remember that reflections are always going to flip. All right, so we've learned a lot about reflections. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about rotations now. So in this portion of the lesson, you will learn to describe how the coordinates of a two-dimensional figure change after a single rotation, and to determine the coordinates of a two-dimensional figure after a single rotation. So that's what we're going to learn here in this lesson. This picture right here is just an example of a rotation. So a rotation is rotating or spinning the figure. So reflection was flipping, rotation is spinning. All right, so let's look at these rotation rules. These 3 rules are, or really 6 rules, are really, really important. Again, make sure you pause this video, write these down. You need to have them for your assignment, for your test. You need to know what these rules are. And pay close attention to a counterclockwise and a clockwise. They will change, okay? So write these rules down, make sure that you have them. All right, so let's go ahead and practice rotations here. So whenever we're doing a rotation, we want to think about the different rules. So we can do counterclockwise or we can do clockwise. Now, if we look here, you can see that a counterclockwise 90 degrees is the same thing as a clockwise 270. These are the same thing. Whenever you're doing one like this, you are making the y value negative, but you're putting it first. I know this looks kind of confusing, but what it means is if you had 2, 1, and you wanted to either counterclockwise 90 or clockwise 270, you're going to take your y value, you're going to move it to the x spot and make it negative. So we're going to have -1. Then you just take your x value and you move it to y. So that's how you're going to do that rotation, okay? So again, let's try to do the 4, 1. So the 4, 1 for this 90 degrees counterclockwise or 270 clockwise, you are taking your y value, making it negative. So we have our 1, we're going to make it -1, and we're going to put it where the x normally goes. And then you're just going to take your x value and put it where the y goes. Okay? And then again, we're going to do our 3, -1. We're going to take our y value, make it negative, or in this case, we're making it positive because it's already negative, putting that in the x spot, and then putting the x over in the y spot. Okay, so that's all you have to do. All you have to do is just look and see what that rule states. Okay, now let's go ahead and look at, okay, so we have a 180 and 180. So a 180, this one is a little bit different because a 180 counterclockwise is really the same thing as a 180 clockwise. Okay, because remember a 180 is a 180. It's kind of like just rotating it around. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at these ones. So we're going from xy to -x, -y. So all you're going to do here is you're going to make these values both be negative, but they're going to stay in the same spot. So this means -2, -1. And then for the 4, 1, again, we're going to keep the values the same, just make them negative. So -4, -1. And then again, with this 3, -1, we're making the 3 negative. This 1 is already negative, so we're going to turn it positive. Okay, so a 180 counterclockwise is the exact same thing as a 180 clockwise. Okay, now let's look at our last one. A 270 counterclockwise is the exact same thing as a 90 degrees clockwise. And for this one, we are going to take our values. Our y value is going to move to the x spot. Our x spot is going to move to the y spot, and it's also going to become negative. So if we start here with our 2, 1, again, we're taking our y value and moving it to the x spot, so putting 1 there. And then we're taking our x and making it negative. So 1, -2, okay? Then we have our 4, 1. So again, we're going to take our y value, move it over to the x spot, take our x value, and make that one negative. Now our last one, we have 3, -1. We are going to take our y value, put it over in the x spot, take your x value, make it negative, and put it in the y spot. Okay, this is a really good spot to stop and take a picture. Remember these rules. These rules are super important when you're doing your rotations. They're going to help you a lot when you're going to do your assignments if you have these written down. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and clear the screen so we can move on to the next one. All right, now what I want to talk about here is being able to identify when you have figures on here, which rotation is which. It's always really important that you're able to look at a graph and determine how this was rotated, okay? So now I know here it's giving you the coordinates. Sometimes you may not even have a graph. You may just have the coordinates, and you have to be able to identify how this changed. How was it rotated? So let's first start. We can see that this purple one is our starting point, okay? The purple one is our original figure. This is our original figure. And we want to see how did this rotate each time. So let's just look at these points here. So this first one, it went from 2, 1 to -1, 2. So our y value became negative and moved up front, and then our x value went second. So which one says that? -yx, that's this one. So this tells you that our red figure, so this one's red, our red figure up here could be a 90 degrees counterclockwise or 270 degrees clockwise. Okay, so those ordered pairs tells us that. Now let's look at our blue one. So our blue one, So we started out with our 2, 1, and we're going to -2, -1. Okay, so this is showing me that, well, our x stayed in its spot, but it became negative. And then our y stayed in its spot, but it became negative. So which one had -x, -y? This one. So this tells us it could be a 180 counterclockwise or a 180 clockwise. All right, now let's look at our last one. So this green one, we started out with our 2, 1. Well, okay, so our 1 moved over to the x spot. So our y moved to the x spot, and then our x moved to the y, but it became negative. So we have y -x. That's going to be this one right here. So it's going to tell us that it could be 270 counterclockwise, or it could be 90 degrees clockwise. So you want to be able to look at the ordered pairs, look at the graph, and determine what kind of rotation happened. Another really good spot to take a picture. Remember, again, you need to know by looking at ordered pairs, by looking at a graph, what kind of rotation happened. Okay, so these rules are super important. All right, so that is it. Thank you so much for coming to this live lesson recording today. If you have any questions, remember to look at our amazing toolbox, reach out to your teacher, and we hope to see you again soon. Thanks so much for coming.